We'll open up for questions and we can move these over so that folks can come up and answer any questions. But are there any?
This legislation...
Could you tell me your name again? So.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm sorry, every time I call Mark, every time I introduce myself, I struggle with this name thing. So
I'm Rachel Butchcombe with Onward News Service.
Good to see you, Rachel.
This legislation, is my understanding there's no exception for rape, incest, health of the mother, is that correct?
Well, given the fact that it doesn't actually kick in protection until that heartbeat is detected, so basically it's once that heartbeat is heard, so that's 6, 8, 10 weeks, abortions are not, unfortunately in my opinion, abortions are not prohibited before then. They're not, children are not protected before then. So it doesn't actually outlaw abortions for rape and incest, or frankly any reason, prior to that detectable heartbeat. So no, there is no exception. However, abortions can still take place prior to when that heartbeat is heard.
But did you, in your polling, did you ask these same people if they would support this statement given there are no exceptions?
Well, it didn't say that there was or wasn't. It simply asked the question, if a doctor is able to detect the heartbeat of an unborn baby, that baby should be legally protected. And you know, I'll tell you my perspective because I think this plays into it. We could find out, Rachel, God forbid, we found out today that you happen to, through no fault of your own, been the product of rape, but you were adopted. Lots of kids find that out, right? And if you found that out, it wouldn't change your humanity. It wouldn't change whether or not you should be protected by law. It wouldn't change whether or not we can hear your heartbeat or other vital signs. There was a woman who came and testified, and she came in lobby, I'm trying to remember her name right now, whose brother was adopted as a product of rape. You may remember, it's in the files, where he's on his 5th tour of duty with Iraq right now, and he is a product of rape. And basically, she lobbied and said, look, you know, they talked about it in the House and said, should children not be protected regardless of the circumstances of their conception? One is James Robeson. You may have heard of him. He's got a television program. He's got a national, international ministry, and he feeds 500,000 kids, what is it, per week? Per week. This guy feeds 500,000, 500,000 hungry children per week, and he happens to be the product of rape. It's not an indicator of whether or not you should live or die. It's an indicator of the circumstances of your conception, which again, none of us have any control over. And so what this bill would do is protect babies whose heartbeats we can hear. Prior to that occurrence, however, those abortions are still legal.
Do you think you've been saying that these margins show the support for the bill? Do you think you can say that given that this sentence doesn't encompass all the details of the bill?
Well, actually, it kind of, in a sense, if you look at what the bill says, and we've made the soundbite, you've heard us say it many times, if a heartbeat's detected, the baby's protected. That's the bill. It also provides for testing. It also provides for informed consent, lets the woman know that there is a heartbeat in her unborn baby. But basically says, look, a doctor is doing the testing. If he can detect that heartbeat of that baby, then the baby should legally be protected. That, in essence, is what the bill says. I don't think I could summarize it much better. We're not trying to skew anything or trick anything. This is the bill, and these are the results. And 5-to-1 margin, they strongly support it. And as we see, 2/3 of the state, 8 out of 10 in the Republican Party, 7 out of 10 independents, and by a 5-to-3 margin, even the Democrats support it as well. This is unheard of, and I don't know if you realize it. Again, I remember when I worked to pass parental consent and the woman's right to know law. And I remember I would sit in the offices of legislators, and I would hand them a bar graph and say, we just conducted an Ohio poll, and these are the results. They have never been I mean, think about this, on parental consent and right to know and all of these ancillary regulatory issues. We have not seen numbers like this. In my opinion, in my experience, we're looking at 8 out of 10. Now, I can tell you something. If I was a member of the Ohio State Senate and I was looking to run for re-election, I think I'd want to be in a place where 8 out of 10 of my party stands, or 7 out of 10 of the independents, or the vast majority of the people of Ohio. Not only is it the right thing to do, it's supported by every demographic in the state of Ohio and every region as well. The people across the board, as Barry has said, the people across the board in the state of Ohio have spoken. Their message is very loud, and as the pollster said, as Fritz Wenzel said, is that legislators ignore it at their own peril.
Why not just ask directly, people, do you agree with prohibiting abortions when a heartbeat is detected? Why not just to remove any potential ambiguity? I mean, legally protected seems like a person might I mean, there's some ambiguity there, potentially. Why not just ask directly?
In fact, can I tell you what I wanted is if a doctor's able to detect the heartbeat of a baby in the womb, should that baby be legally protected or protected by law? It doesn't really matter. That's what these laws do, is they protect. I mean, you can say, that school zone legislation is prohibitive to the drivers who have the freedom to go as fast as they want. No, it's a protection of the children who go to school. That's what the law is for. And that's what this law is for. In fact, it was Thomas Jefferson who said, hey, the reason we have government, the first and only legitimate object of good government is the protection of human life, not its destruction. That's why we have it. I remember, many of you heard me maybe mention, I remember talking with then Senator Betty Montgomery. And she said to me, Janet, I've seen the heartbeat of the ultrasound and the 8-week-old baby in the womb sucking her thumb, fetus in the womb. Doesn't matter whether you use English or Latin. It's the same child. And she says, but we need to get government out of the issue. And it's interesting, that particular day, I pointed to a plaque that was on her desk. It was a quote from Thomas Jefferson on her desk that said, the care of human life and not its destruction is the first and only legitimate object of good government. So while I'm not for a lot of government interference, I frankly think we have too much government. We have too many regulations. But I do recognize, as Thomas Jefferson did, that the reason we have it is to protect human life. And so should the babies be legally protected? I think that's as crystal clear as you can get. And I think it's something that the people of Ohio, they're pretty bright. They understand that, look, if a doctor's listening, he can detect that heartbeat of that baby, then the law should certainly protect that baby from abortion or any other assault, whether it's fetal homicide. I was the one who worked to pass that bill. So all of these are protected legislation, and the good news is the people of the state resoundingly support them.
Can you tell us how much the poll cost you to do? You're putting your money where your mouth is here, kind of, with trying to get some traction. Do you know?
I do. It was. I can say. How shall I say it? I don't know if Fritz and Wenzel Strategies releases those numbers, but it was several $100s. I can say that.
Pardon me?
Several $100s.
And are you concerned at all? Senator Niehaus yesterday seemed to be more directed at Linda Theis than you, but said, "This is, we'll take our time on this," and do you think there could be a backlash in the Senate by trying to push them?
Well, it's not like we haven't been patient. 5 months is a pretty long wait, given the fact that, as Linda just said, it resoundingly came from the House, with the Speaker of the House, who knows more about constitutional law than probably any judge you're going to find in any court, frankly, in the state. He's brilliant, and he's vetted this. He's taken honestly, I thought 5 weeks of a wait in the House was a lot. I thought, it's been a committee process, 5 weeks of committee hearings, another 5 weeks of waiting. I thought that was a lot. But it's nothing compared to the 5 months we've been waiting for the Senate to move. And again, when the numbers are, when you're looking at 10,000 lives, just how patient are you supposed to be? 10,000 babies' lives who could have been protected in June. They need to be protected right now. And so it's not a matter of patience, it's a matter of life and death. That's the issue. One other add-on I'll just mention is again, the way, and maybe I've learned, I missed something in civics class, but the way a bill becomes a law, the way you vet a bill, the way you hear both sides of the issue is the committee process that's open to the press, is it not? That's really what we're looking for, an up or down vote, and I think the people of Ohio are certainly entitled to that. I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Noah Blondo with Hannah News Service. There's a national group that's pursuing a constitutional abortion issue. The Personhood Amendment would presumably have at least as many restrictions or protections as this bill. Are you going to be working on that?
Well, let me just say, we're for, we made this very clear, we supported all the Ohio Right to Life bills, the Personhood Amendments. We're for any bill that protects anyone. And I have been involved in those amendments. I was part of the South Dakota campaign. Was there, we placed tens of thousands of dollars of television ads on statewide. I did a radio program statewide every day. We spoke at Mount Rushmore next to Alan Keyes and James Dobson. We did that, basically that issue, we gave it what we could. And I think, frankly, the personhood amendment that has the most likelihood of passing is one in Mississippi. But I'm for anybody that wants to protect anyone. So we're for those efforts. We're for the post-viability protection. We're for cleaning up the judicial bypass out of parental consent. All of those things we're for. And so that's really the issue. And I think that's the question that needs to be asked of those who are standing against this bill. As you see by the polls, they're standing alone. But what we find out is that even when you take a look at the membership of Ohio Right to Life, Rochelle, who was here from Hancock County Right to Life, also with Ohio Pro-Life Action, knows that she represents the people of the state. 2/3 of the chapters, the vast majority of even the Right to Life local chapters support this bill. I mean, I could put a bar graph up and show you the same thing, essentially, that, what we're looking at is no matter where you go into Ohio Right to Life's membership, you're still looking at these kind of polls. And so, I guess what was the question again?
Whether you would be supportive of it.
Yeah, we're for any bill. Text anyone. Yeah, and the good news is, if I didn't think this had the greatest likelihood, if this wasn't the best way, the best chance to save the most lives, I wouldn't be putting everything I have behind the heartbeat bill. The reason we believe it has the best chance to save the most lives is not only because we have the best and the brightest in the country who are drafting it. In fact, David Forte, many of you heard me say, Speaker Batchelder reported to me, and it was after the vote, and I said, I understand you had the conversation with Professor David Forte, a 30-year constitutional law professor out of Cleveland State University, and his response to me was very, very remarkable, I thought. He said, David Forte, direct quote, is the best there is. Coming from the Speaker of the House, who a former judge, whose wife sits on the Sixth Circuit, he said David Forte is the best there is. He's the prime architect of the bill, along with Walter Weber, who has been reported to be the best in abortion litigation in the country. He's been in it his entire life. He works for the Senior Litigation Council of the American Center for Law and Justice, and he is someone who is basically the co-pilot of this, along with many other not only legislators, but attorneys who drafted this. I believe that this, because it was drafted with Roe versus Wade, with the court in mind, it's the best chance we have. We've heard the finding of fact. Many of you have heard me talk about that. It was the bill that began here in Ohio, the bill that we passed that banned partial birth abortions. We were the first one. 30 states followed us, and what happened was ultimately we won. In 2007, Gonzalez v. Carhart, and in that finding of fact, in that victory Supreme Court case, they said that after 34 years, after calling it a potential license, Roe versus Wade, they actually said that it's a living fetus from the point, this is the current Supreme Court, undisputed, that there is a living fetus from the time of detectable heartbeat. I didn't even realize many members from the Speaker's office. Make sure you tell them all the good things we're saying about it, because I didn't realize you were there at that. It sounds like it was flattery, but it really wasn't, because it just occurred to me you're all here. So, sorry, Shannon. So basically, we've also heard from former clerks of Justice Kennedy. We've read his opinions, and we believe that he may not be ready to protect every child just yet, but I believe he will, as the people of Ohio have spoken so loudly and so clearly, protect those babies whose heartbeats we can hear.